In the next 60 seconds, 3 billion people could die. No, this isn't science fiction. This is what military planners actually prepare for. Welcome to the most dangerous question on Earth. What would happen if the United States and China went to war? Let's be clear about something up front. When we talk about US-China war, we're not talking about another Iraq. We're not talking about Afghanistan. We're talking about two nuclear-armed superpowers with a combined GDP of over $40 trillion. Two nations that control the global economy, the world's shipping lanes, and enough firepower to end civilization as we know it. This isn't a video about who we want to win. This isn't about politics. This is about what would actually happen if the unthinkable became reality. Because here's the terrifying truth. Military planners in both Washington and Beijing have detailed scenarios for exactly this war. They've run the simulations, they've calculated the casualties, they've mapped out every possible move, and what they found should scare all of us. So buckle up. We're going to walk through the most realistic scenario of how this war starts, how it would be fought across every domain imaginable, and why there might not be any winners when the dust settles. But here's the real problem. The war might already be closer than you think. The military comparison. Before we talk about battles, we need to understand the players. The United States military is the most experienced fighting force on the planet. They've been at war, continuously, for over 2 decades. Their Navy has 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Their Air Force operates over 13,000 aircraft. They have 750 military bases scattered across 80 countries. But here's what most people don't understand. China has spent the last 20 years specifically building a military designed to defeat the United States in one specific theater. The Western Pacific. China's military isn't trying to match America's global reach. They're building what's called an anti-access area denial strategy. Roughly translated, they're making it impossible for American ships and planes to get anywhere near Chinese shores. They've got the world's largest navy by ship count, over 370 vessels. They've built artificial islands in the South China Sea armed with missile systems. They've developed hypersonic missiles that travel 5 times the speed of sound and can theoretically sink an aircraft carrier in one hit. But here's the real problem. China hasn't fought a real war since 1979. Their military is powerful on paper, but untested in combat. America, meanwhile, has been fighting continuously. Their troops are battle-hardened. Their commanders have real experience. Their military doctrine has been refined in actual warfare. So who has the advantage? It depends entirely on where this war happens. And that brings us to the most critical question: how the war would start. Wars don't just happen. They're sparked by specific events, specific miscalculations, specific moments where leaders feel they have no choice but to fight. So how does the US-China war actually start? The most likely scenario isn't a surprise attack, it's Taiwan. Imagine this. It's 3 a.m. in Washington. The president is woken by a secure call. Chinese naval forces have crossed the Taiwan Strait. Paratroopers are descending on Taipei. Missile strikes have destroyed Taiwan's air defenses in the first 20 minutes. The United States has a long-standing policy of strategic ambiguity about Taiwan. But in reality, if America doesn't respond, their entire alliance system in Asia collapses. Japan, South Korea, Australia, they're all watching. If America abandons Taiwan, they know they could be next. So the president orders the 7th Fleet to intervene. And this is where things get dangerous. Because China has spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. They know American carriers are coming. They know exactly when they'll arrive. And they have a plan to sink them. But there's another possibility. Maybe the war starts in the South China Sea. A Chinese fighter jet accidentally collides with an American surveillance plane. Both pilots eject. China captures the American pilot. Washington demands immediate release. Beijing refuses. Or maybe it's economic. America imposes a total trade embargo on China. China's economy begins to collapse. Chinese leaders face a choice: back down and lose power, or gamble everything on a military solution to break the blockade. Here's the terrifying reality. In any of these scenarios, neither side wants war. But both sides might feel they can't back down. And once the first shots are fired, escalation becomes almost impossible to stop. If the war across all domains. If this war happens, it won't look like World War II. It won't even look like the Gulf War. Multi-domain war in human history. Fighting across land, air, sea, cyber, and space simultaneously. Let me break down what that actually means. The Sea War. The Pacific Ocean becomes a killing field. China's strategy is simple: keep American carriers 1,000 miles away from Chinese shores. They'll use thousands of precision missiles launched from land, sea, and air, creating a missile wall that American ships cannot penetrate. But America has spent decades perfecting carrier strike group defense, Aegis combat systems, electronic warfare, missile defense networks. The question is, can you shoot down enough missiles when China fires hundreds simultaneously? And here's what changes everything: submarines. America's submarine fleet is their ace in the hole. Silent, invisible, deadly. American attack submarines could sink dozens of Chinese ships before China even knows they're there. But China has been building submarines too, and in the confined waters of the South China Sea, submarines become even more dangerous. The air war. The skies above the Pacific would see the largest air battles since World War II. American F-35s and F-22s against China's J-20 stealth fighters. But modern air warfare isn't about dogfights, it's about sensors, data links, who sees who first. America has an advantage in stealth technology and pilot experience, but China has home field advantage. Their radar networks cover every approach, their pilots are flying over their own territory, and both sides have something else: drones, thousands of them, swarming the skies, acting as scouts, decoys, and weapons platforms. The age of manned dogfighting might end in this war. The land war. Here's something most people don't realize. There probably wouldn't be a major land invasion of either country. America isn't invading mainland China. That's suicide. 1 billion people, mountainous terrain, and nuclear weapons make that impossible. China isn't invading the American mainland. The Pacific Ocean is 5,000 miles wide. The land war would be limited. Taiwan's beaches, maybe some islands in the South China Sea. Brutal, close-quarters combat where both sides take horrific casualties. But the real land war might happen elsewhere. India and China have a disputed border. If China is fighting America, India might see an opportunity. Pakistan might side with China. Suddenly, you have a regional war spiraling into something much bigger. The cyber war. This is where the cyber war has already begun. Chinese hackers shut down America's power grid on the West Coast. American cyber weapons disable China's financial system. Hospitals go dark. Banking stops. Water treatment plants fail. In modern warfare, cyber attacks can kill just as surely as bombs, maybe more so. And here's the nightmare scenario. What if someone hacks nuclear command and control? What if either side believes the other is launching nuclear weapons because of a computer glitch? The space war. Both militaries depend on satellites, GPS, communications, intelligence, reconnaissance. Take away the satellites, and modern warfare goes blind. Both sides have developed anti-satellite weapons. America can shoot down Chinese satellites. China can shoot down American satellites. But here's the problem. Destroying satellites creates debris fields that make space unusable for everyone. It's called the Kessler syndrome. One destroyed satellite creates thousands of pieces of debris. Those pieces destroy other satellites. Suddenly, nobody can use space. And without satellites, there's no GPS, no precision-guided weapons, no real-time intelligence. We go back to fighting like it's 1980. Economic consequences. But here's the real problem. Even if the shooting stops after a month, the economic damage lasts for decades. The US-China economic relationship is the most important in human history. Over $700 billion in annual trade. China holds over $1 trillion in US debt. American companies have built their entire supply chains around Chinese manufacturing. War doesn't just stop that, it destroys it permanently. Imagine waking up tomorrow and your iPhone doesn't work because the chips can't be manufactured. Your car can't be repaired because the parts come from China. Your medication isn't available because 80% of pharmaceutical ingredients are made in China. The global economy doesn't just slow down, it collapses. Stock markets would crash 50% or more. Unemployment would hit 20, 30, maybe 40%. The Great Depression would look like a minor recession compared to this. And it gets worse. China is the world's largest importer of oil. If Chinese ships can't sail, global oil demand crashes. Oil prices might briefly spike, then collapse. Middle Eastern economies implode. Russia loses its biggest customer. America's economy is more resilient, but not immune. Inflation would skyrocket as Chinese goods disappear from shelves. The dollar might lose its status as the global reserve currency. America's ability to borrow money cheaply, something they've depended on for decades, could end. This isn't just a recession. This is a fundamental restructuring of the global economy. And this could change everything. Global impact. But the world doesn't just sit and watch while America and China fight. NATO would be drawn in immediately. Not because NATO is obligated to defend Taiwan, they're not, but because NATO is obligated to defend territory if America itself is attacked. And in a war this big, attacks on American bases in Japan, South Korea, or Guam are attacks on American territory. Japan would fight. They have no choice. If America loses, Japan knows they're next. The Japanese self-defense forces would mobilize fully for the first time since World War II. Australia would fight. They've already signaled they would join America in defending Taiwan. South Korea faces an impossible choice. Help America, and they risk North Korea attacking them. Stay neutral, and they lose their alliance with America. Russia is the wild card. Putin has spent years building closer ties with China. If China is losing, does Russia open a second front against America? Do they attack NATO? Or do they wait, let America and China bleed each other dry, then pick up the pieces? India has border disputes with China. They might see this as their chance to settle scores. Pakistan is China's ally. They might attack India. Iran hates both America and Saudi Arabia. Do they use the chaos to attack Israel? To close the Strait of Hormuz? And this is where things get dangerous, because regional wars have a habit of becoming world wars. The assassination of one archduke in 1914 led to 17 million deaths. How many would die if half the world's major powers are fighting simultaneously? The possible outcomes. So who wins? The honest answer? Probably nobody. But let's walk through the scenarios. Scenario 1. Quick American victory. America's technology and experience proved decisive. Submarines sink the Chinese fleet in the first week. Air superiority is established over Taiwan. Chinese forces on the island are cut off and forced to surrender. But here's the problem. China has nuclear weapons. If the Communist Party faces collapse, do they use them? Would any leader accept total defeat when they have an arsenal that could destroy their enemy? Scenario 2. Prolonged stalemate. The war drags on for months or years. Both economies are devastated. Both militaries are exhausted. Eventually, a negotiated settlement is reached. Taiwan's status remains unresolved. Both sides claim victory. But the world is changed forever. The global economy is in ruins. America's alliances are strained. China's rise is halted. A new Cold War begins, more dangerous than the last. Scenario 3. Chinese victory. China successfully invades and holds Taiwan. America's carriers are too damaged to continue the fight. Public opinion in America turns against the war. The United States negotiates a face-saving withdrawal. But this isn't really a victory for China either. Their economy is destroyed. They're now the pariah of the world, facing sanctions and isolation, and they've proven that military force can solve territorial disputes, which means every neighbor with a dispute is now arming for war. Scenario 4. Nuclear escalation. This is the nightmare. One side uses tactical nuclear weapons to break a stalemate. The other side retaliates. Within hours, strategic nuclear weapons are flying. In this scenario, there are no winners, only survivors. American and Chinese cities are destroyed. Hundreds of millions die in the first day. Nuclear winter follows. Global agriculture collapses. Billions starve. This is why military planners on both sides desperately want to avoid this war. Because they know, in a war between nuclear superpowers, the only way to truly win is to never fight at all. Conclusion. So here we are. We've walked through how this war starts, how it would be fought across every domain imaginable, how it would devastate the global economy, draw in nations across the world, and potentially end with nuclear fire. And here's the thought I want to leave you with. Every day, diplomats and military officers in Washington and Beijing work to prevent this war. They understand something that we sometimes forget, that cooperation, however difficult, is always better than destruction. The United States and China are competitors. They always will be. But they don't have to be enemies. Because if they become enemies, truly, openly at war, there won't be a world left for the winner to inherit. The next time you hear politicians talking tough about China, or Chinese state media threatening America, remember this video. Remember what's actually at stake. Remember that behind the rhetoric and the posturing, There are 1.4 billion people in China and 330 million in America who just want to live their lives in peace. War is easy to start, it's impossible to control, and in the nuclear age, it might be impossible to survive. The unthinkable scenario isn't just unthinkable, it's unsurvivable. Let's make sure it stays that way. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep analysis videos like this, and let me know in the comments, do you think a US-China war is becoming more likely, or are we safer than we think? Until next time, stay informed, stay critical, and remember, the future isn't written yet, we still have time to choose a better path.